Hello. Facebook and YouTube and website and probably Twitter as well. This is Neya. I'm Neil, and
Sonia.
we always do that. It seems to be a little bit of our starting point. Very, very cheesy, but hey, we need to kind of figure out a slightly more cool way of introducing ourselves, I think. Because it's a bit like the two Ronnies back in the 1970s. Good night from me and it's good night from him, isn't it, that thing? Remember? No. Showing my age anyway. Okay, so this is another little Neya chat that we've been having, and they've been really fun, and we've been doing some general kind of introductory chats of late. The last one that we did, well, the previous one to the last one was kind of introducing ourselves and saying who really we are. The last one that we did was a real introduction to the concept of the art of living and some of the things that we do as habits in our little world, and just introducing a few little ideas. And we've had some really interesting feedback, so thank you for those of you who actually sent some comments and things in. We're taking everything on board.
I'm not the only one who likes making the bed in the morning.
No, we heard
perfectly.
that, which is quite
a real
scary.
relief to me.
A number of people, not just one other person, a number of people have said that they are
so
quite...
fellow bed makers.
Anyway, we'll see whether that one really flies or not. But anyway, so this particular video, we thought we would cover the subject of mastermind. Now, mastermind is a concept, and we'll kind of give you our sort of personal take on how we're using the concept of mastermind. But the concept of mastermind is that you surround yourself with important other people. Okay, and we'll kind of explain how that works. I think originally it came from the whole Napoleon Hill Think Rich, Grow Rich and Law of Success and a whole variety of other publications, which is something that we have been reading quite extensively, and we've created whole mantras and sort of stuff around those, and we will be covering those in a lot more detail in future sessions. But I think actually the most recent, really obvious example was back in 2003 when England won the Rugby World Cup. And Sir Clive Woodward surrounded himself with experts. He basically decided, and his big vision was that England would win the World Cup. And the only way he could do it as a coach of a national team was that he didn't know everything. He didn't have the technical experience in every single discipline to be able to do it himself. So he surrounded himself with a group of world-class experts, and of course the rest, as they say, is history. So this whole concept of mastermind is a really quite significant way that you can increase your footprint, your coverage, your profile, your process of how you actually either do business or act and operate as an individual, as a human being. And it comes at a whole variety of different levels. I mean, I obviously come at this from certainly initially my thinking is from a professional perspective, surrounding myself with people who can actually help me in my sort of development of my business and professionally. But I think you've got a slightly different take on the whole kind of mastermind concept.
In terms of Napoleon Hill, you mean, what I'm doing? Yeah, well, I don't know if it's different. I mean, from the book, I suppose I've just literally lifted it from the book. So if I've understood the book properly, the idea is you don't have to have a group of people that are still alive. So it can be people who are now passed on but have been influential in your life, or you've really resonated with their thought processes and ideas and the way they've done things. So it can be a mixture of the two. And I just had a bit of fun the other week because I was writing my kind of intentions for 2019, and then thought, oh well, I'll go on the internet and find images of the people, and in my my photograph kind of library of the people that I want to have in my mastermind. So this is so that I can tap into their knowledge really, and their wisdom, their charisma, anything like that. And it was quite fun because what I did was I just brought up a document and dragged in all the images and put their names underneath, and now what I do, I have it on my desktop and I've got it on my phone, and then in the mornings or whenever I think I've just got a few minutes, I kind of look at their pictures and kind of connect with them. what I intend to do, which I haven't done yet, is actually, this is going to sound a bit wacky.
Surely not. Wacky idea from Sonia.
But I'm actually, and also this is covered in the book, so it's not only me, but actually invite them in to my imagination and sit them around a boardroom table and actually in my mind's eye ask them a question or something that I'm stuck with, like a problem or a decision I can't make, and kind of picture them all dressed in whatever I imagine them dressed in, and with their own little characters and what they're like, and then actually use them as a real committee of wise elders almost. And in the book, Napoleon Hill did just that. And he said what was really spooky was after a while of doing this, it's like you go into another world and they actually become, you know, the people they were. And they have mannerisms and little habits. And he was saying one person that he had in his group, you know, would kind of pace up and down in the room while he was thinking about what he'd contribute to Napoleon's, you know, problem he wanted solved. So I haven't got that far yet, but I'm getting quite excited about it because one of mine is Prince.
No.
So
Interesting
and
to see how chatty he is at the time.
For those of you who know me, I listened to Prince's music from a young girl, and yeah, I just absolutely loved him. So and of course since his passing, I think we've all heard how you know, much more about his personality and how he did things for charity, and was much more influential than we probably all realised. So he's got a real character, obviously, and I want to see what outfits he's going to be dressed wearing around the boardroom table. But the funny thing is, I've created this group, this mastermind, and I'm thinking, oh, actually, they're quite strong characters. I think I'm going to have some real debate going on around the table. So
are you using those then for instances maybe where you can't see the wood from the trees, or you need a little bit of clarity over something and you think that just kind of reflecting on it yourself isn't enough because you don't necessarily have the wisdom or the experience to kind of even get to the answer? So are you using them because
I mean, I haven't done it yet,
beyond?
but I think how I'm going to use them is that. So I think initially I'm going to use them to ask, is there anything better? Is there a better way I can be using my intention setting, or is there something I'm not doing right, or, you know, how am I doing? And checking in with them maybe is the first thing I'll do. But then, yeah, I would bring a specific challenge to the table that I want answered. So yeah, it's going to be quite interesting, I think. I mean, I don't know when I'm going to do that. I guess I'll have to put aside some time, because I think you need to kind of be in that slightly meditative theta brainwave state. It's probably an evening thing. I think that's what Napoleon Hill suggested, that you do it of an evening, and maybe before bedtime you relax and you check in with them all. And my problem is I'll probably fall asleep because if I relax too much, I just seem to zonk out. But yeah, I just have to see, maybe check in again at another chat, and I'll be able to tell you how it goes. But that's what I was going to do. But I think you've done it in a slightly different way.
I've got a bit of a different perspective, and I think actually, unbeknown to me, I've actually been doing this for quite a few years. I can remember a very, very early job that I had in NatWest, actually, sort of many decades ago, literally, and I was on a sort of a development program actually when I joined, and the very, very first thing that we had to do in this program was actually watch a video of Brian Tracy. Now you might have come across Brian Tracy. He's one of these American sort of evangelical sort of management gurus, and still going now really strongly, really big sort of international profile. And I can remember thinking, this guy's just got something. I don't want to be him. I don't emulate or feel like I should emulate him, but there's just something about the way he talks. There's something about the real genius behind some of the concepts that he was sharing then. And it's only really since kind of, you know, the dawn of the internet and sort of through into recent years, where a lot of these kinds of people have obviously got now huge online profiles, that I kind of reconnected with him. Now, it's an interesting thing because I feel like I've reconnected with him. He doesn't know who I am, but of course I know who he is. And I think this is the point about this is, you never directly, we saw Prince a number of times, but you never actually directly met him.
No,
and yet we
matter.
can, in this mastermind concept, we can create that kind of relationship, and either friendship, it could be a mentoring, it could be a coaching. And the really, really important thing about this is to get into your mastermind group a whole set of individuals who will, I think as Sonia's sort of saying, come at this from different perspectives, from different styles, from different tones of voice, to really give you this kind of broader perspective on the world or on particular issues than you could ever hope to have if you were by yourself. So really kind of following this Clive Woodward idea of, surrounding yourself by this kind of expert group. I think, as Sonia said, one of the really interesting things is that some of these people can be people from childhood or early sort of work life, when you're sort of evolving into an adult, but they can also, as I've sort of dabbled with over the years, be people that you've never met but that have in some way kind of touched your world and have been really kind of quite influential.
Or that you just really respect.
And you really respect. And again, there's something about either the process that they follow or some of the wisdom that they've shared, or it could just be a style thing. There could just be something about them and you think, there's something about that. For me, and lots of people say, but actually for me, Roger Federer is a huge influence in that kind of outer circle. He's not kind of in my inner mastermind, but in that kind of outer sort of circle in terms of how you should behave, both professionally and also personally. The guy he just operates at every level with so much grace, and I think to say that about a male is actually quite a rare thing, and I think huge respect to him. All right, he is the greatest tennis player of all time, and he's obviously, in professional terms, he's just hit levels that other people only aspire to. And yet, as a person, as an individual, he is the most humble, respectful. You see interviews with him, and he's always that consistent, graceful. I think that's the only really word that I can use. And it's those kinds of things that you just think, okay, so what can I take from that? And it's this almost constant reminder. Do you emulate these people, or do you try to emulate these people? I'm not sure. Maybe for you could. But I think for me, it's just this cauldron of people and styles and experience and wisdom.
Well, you could almost say it's almost a bit like immersing yourself in their fragrance or their aroma, isn't it? Their kind of charisma.
That's good.
But what went just through my head, which is a slight tangent, but I'll ask the question, is how do we think this is similar or different to channeling somebody? And is it possible to channel wisdom from somebody who's living? Because we normally associate channeling with an ascended master or a spirit guide, somebody who's not of this plane, this earth anymore.
If you're not too familiar with what channeling is, the way that Sonia's describing it, you want to Google it, okay, and then you'll get kind of a view. It's a hugely big subject.
So I was just wondering whether what we're talking about is a certain type of channeling, maybe a part of their personality, or is it the energy that they're using themselves, and then by imagining them, you have access to that same inspiration or vitality or vital energy or their drive or motivation or their, I don't know what the answer is, but I just wonder whether that's possible. It's almost a bit like when athletes use the power of intention and visualization to imagine them jumping over the pole vault before they do it, and they run it over several times in their head to kind of make the neural pathways stronger, and then when they do it, they're much more likely to succeed. Is it similar to that, in that you make a connection with the person and what they've achieved, and you've seen them achieve, and so you're actually borrowing, in some bizarre way, you're borrowing their neural pathways somehow?
Well, you're certainly acquiring some energy, aren't you? And certainly if you visualise them, of course, if you, I mean, going back to the Federer example, if you watch Federer playing tennis, you could say, well, actually, he is actually only ever, when you watch him, he's only ever playing tennis in your perception. So that is actually something you're creating in your mind. So the fact that you're actually visually watching him, or if you're visualizing him doing actually in your head, it's no different, really. It's one of the same. So I think what you're doing, you're saying is you're actually borrowing the energy of that person and then creating that perception in your mind. And so when you talk about your mastermind group sat around a boardroom, well, they're actually there in your perception because you're taking that energy.
Because if I imagine, and I'm going to use Prince as the example because he is so flamboyant in the way he dresses and sings and performs. He's not when he's interviewed, he's very quiet, isn't he? But if I was to picture him and imagine asking him a question, I don't think I could help but actually return that question or respond without being a little bit more cheeky and kind of. So maybe there is some of that exchange already going on, because you're almost preparing yourself to receive and respond to the type of energy that is around that person. That aura around them, but you're somehow merging with that in your mind. I don't know. I've never really thought about it like that.
No, it's interesting. I mean, this is the whole thing with these things. We don't rehearse. Well, you probably can understand. You probably gathered that. But we don't rehearse this. In fact, actually, we only decide what we're going to talk about like 2 minutes before we actually click the record button.
It's a bit like, isn't it, when you hear people say, I mean, everyone's got friends that they enjoy being with maybe more than others because they lift you. So is that a similar thing, that you're kind of rubbing off their aura? You're kind of being recharged by them, or?
Yeah, and I think for me, probably, I think without wanting to get into, because I don't really understand it, the whole quantum physics thing, but I think for me, what you're describing is the reason why it doesn't matter whether that person is physically in front of you, whether they were somebody who's passed away but you still want them in your group, or whether it's somebody you've never met and you've only ever seen on a screen or on stage. And I think if you're correct in the way that you describe it, it feels, from having done this for quite some years now, having individuals in the real world, friends, and you're obviously in my mastermind group, and other sort of people who are close to me, as well as people who I follow on Twitter and Facebook and stuff. So it is quite a broad, quite an eclectic mix, but actually when I think about them, they're all at the same level. So I think, you could be right. That's how it feels when you do this. And, I really would encourage you to go and have a little think about this, is, who do you want in your group? Who influences you, who motivates you, who stimulates you to kind of think of stuff, who kind of helps you when the going gets tough? It's whatever you actually feel like you need, you can put into your group. And this is not a permanent group. There are certain individuals in my group right now who have literally only just arrived in that group, and there are people who served a purpose, and this is no disrespect to them, it's just I was in a different place. They've served a purpose and they've now moved on. So it's not a permanent fixture, this, is it, at all?
Well, I'm already evolving. I mean, obviously it's early days, but the other day I just suddenly thought of somebody else that was really important in my life, and I thought, how did I manage to miss them off the list? So I've added them in, so it's actually really fun, because you can kind of backtrack through your life and think of all the people that have touched you or made an impact on you, and up until present day, and then leave that door open, as you say, for new ones to come in. And so yeah, it's a really valuable tool, I think, isn't it?
So here's a question for you then, and we haven't rehearsed this, so this just came off the top of my head on this one. So I don't know whether you want to answer this, but would you tell the people who who are close to you that they're in your mastermind, or do you keep this sort of thing private? So I'm not saying necessarily just you, but if you were guiding somebody or mentoring somebody to setting their own up, what would you say?
It depends on the person.
Okay.
Not me, I mean the other person. So I think, because some people might be a bit freaked out by that.
The fact that they're in your mastermind.
And you've told them, whereas other people would be flattered or be like, for example, Rob and Frank, who I used to work with at AstraZeneca and who were very close friends, I tell them because then no doubt
they'll come back with some witty sort of
jokey
joke
comment
back,
or something, or
And if you are watching this, yeah, okay.
So yeah, I'm sure that they'd be interested and amused and have a bit of a laugh about it, whereas other people might think it was a bit kind of weird and a bit.
You don't think people would be flattered?
Well, some would be, maybe, I think. Well, yeah, no, I'm sure some would. I think it depends on the personalities involved. So I think you have to make an individual assessment of that.
So kind of leading on from that then, do you feel it's important to keep your mastermind private and personal, particularly? I mean, I don't think I've ever told anybody ever that, Roger Federer is in my mastermind group, and obviously there are others, I think you're aware of some of them. But do you think it's important to keep it private? Because a lot of this kind of visualization and kind of intention setting and law of attraction stuff is actually very personal, and some of it can be very personal.
I'm going to make an assumption. I think you think it's important for it to be private.
I didn't ask that. I asked the question was, do you think it's important to be private?
Well, I showed you mine, didn't I? But I haven't seen yours.
Well, I don't think I haven't written mine down, so note to self, I'm going to write mine down before the next session.
But answering your question without putting you too much on the spot.
Thank you.
I think it's something that you probably don't want to overkill or over talk about. Because it's... Why am I saying that? I think because it feels like a special forum, and I don't mean that in an elitist way, but it's for quiet times when you want to go within and call on those people. I just can't help but feel that if you were to tell everyone about it, it would somehow take away some of the energy. So I don't know why I'm saying that. I really don't know why I'm saying that, but that just is the way it feels a little bit. Yeah, maybe, I don't know, respectful kind of, yeah.
So the boardroom that you conjure in your mind, then the door is always shut when you're having conversations in there?
Yes, yeah. Certainly in that, yeah. I mean, if, like this, I mean, I don't mind sharing who at the moment is in mine.
Well, it was obvious that Prince was going to be in there, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's different for everyone again, because I guess what we're doing is we're answering these questions based on our own perception and paradigms, aren't we? The way we see the world and the way we feel, and you're more of a private person in general than I am. I'm really open about most things, so probably some of the way we answer it is dependent on ourselves.
And I think it's down to really for you to kind of decide, what's relevant to you. But I think you're right in terms of the level of privacy there. I wasn't doing it, so I set myself up then to have to answer the question, so I'll move swiftly on, I think. But to me, I think it's about getting a mix and a balance, and it's about enjoying the process of kind of figuring out who and what you need. So I think I've certainly gone into it from a professional journey perspective. I've been thinking about, okay, so who would I need in here if I, had a mastermind group to help me with various stages of the various projects and business sort of things that I'm working on. I think, in sort of personal, private life, I feel kind of okay with that. So it tends to, as I say, for me, very much focus more professionally than really personally. But I guess that's just kind of where I am right now. I think, obviously, with your help, I tend to figure out most stuff personally. There's not really much that, I'd be sort of sat here thinking, oh gosh, I need a whole team around me to figure that concept out. I either just don't put it as a priority, or we discuss it and then we move on. But I think certainly professionally, there are loads of gaps. I mean, there's loads of stuff that I don't know and I need to know. And I've been in business for 30 years. And, there's still every single day you think, gosh, I really need a bit of guidance on this subject or that subject.
I think maybe, though, listening to you speak, the room could get really crowded if you have too many.
Okay.
At any one time. Or, I mean, maybe that's a personal thing for me, but there is something about the number 8, isn't there? Groups of 8.
It's worked, hasn't it? We've seen that.
And there's lots of research into the number 8 and groups of 8 people coming together and being able to manifest and influence change in the world through the power of thought. So I quite like the idea of 8. But maybe having, because maybe one of them is busy one evening and not able to be at the boardroom table because maybe they're off somewhere else, somebody else's mastermind group. But maybe you have subs,
right?
A couple of subs, maybe. I don't know.
You can play with this idea. I hadn't thought of it that way before, but okay. I think maybe for me, the way I kind of conjured in my head, I don't yet have a boardroom. I'm going to play with that idea because actually, from a business perspective, it could work really well. But I think certainly from my way of looking at this and from the things I've practiced over the years in this regard is I think it's quite nice to have different people almost performing different roles around that group and around that team. Comes back to the Clive Woodward sort of thing again. He would have had a forwards coach, he would have had a backs coach, he would have had a kicking coach, he would have had an offensive coach, defensive coach, and so all of these people performing very specific functions. But then the collaboration of those and the interaction between each of those then creates this much, much bigger whole. It's a little bit like the whole kind of Neya thing that we're creating. We've talked about this loads, haven't we? The fact that, I've got my stuff, you've got your stuff, but this bit in the middle, which we're kind of calling Neya, is something, it's almost like an energy of its own, isn't it, really? So it's that kind of thing. So if this was like a little mini mastermind in itself, there's kind of 3 of us in this, really. So,
yeah.
So different roles, different people. And as you say, probably 8 is a really sort of good number to aim for if you're kind of starting out on this one, is and have fun with that process, really. Have some real fun with it.
And in general, I know we're talking about mastermind group, but I also think it doesn't have to be the group's one thing, but why not start thinking about, well, when you're a bit of a stupid idea just came in my head, but most people cook, whether you really enjoy it or you don't. But imagine if you were to cook a dinner party, be in your kitchen cooking, and ask for Jamie Oliver to come in and give a hand or something.
Divine inspiration. What do I do now?
So, but because I was thinking the other day when I was making my ceramics, I was thinking what I need to do is actually get in the zone before I start making and actually call in somebody that I respect to help. Why not?
Actually, I laughed, but actually there were a group of us when I was playing tennis back in my late teens, early 20s. There were a group of us who played with the concept of being the pros of the time, and we would literally embody them. We would serve like them. Gosh, I'd completely forgotten about that, but we would serve like them, we'd walk like them. People like Agassi and John McEnroe and people like that with very distinctive kind of mannerisms.
Well, it sounds like you certainly embodied John McEnroe with your tennis racket in the tarmac.
We don't need to get, I could get sued for that. We don't need to go there. But that, it was an interesting thing. So actually, maybe it was, for me, it was even that far ago, where we were kind of playing with that concept of actually, what does it feel like to literally be them? And we were the mannerisms and everything.
I mean, quantum physics says that everything is energy. So we are energy, because if you put our hand under a microscope, a very powerful one, you would see that actually our flesh and bone and muscle and everything and blood is made up of compounds and molecules, which are made up of atoms which have got electrons and protons and neutrons in them, and then you can get even smaller, and I've forgotten what the smaller things are. But basically we are more nothing,
more space,
no thing, than we are something. So we are totally energy. So why not then be able to borrow or merge with, or I don't know what other phrase it is, the energy that was or is somebody else by taking on that kind of persona. If everything's energy, then maybe that's totally possible.
If you've seen any good videos, or you've got any good books or any good links, can you put them in the comments below or direct message or email us? Because I'd like to look more into that. I think that's a really interesting one. That feels like that could be the subject for another session, another point, another time. This is what we do, is we just kind of talk on and on and on, and then we come up with these, there's
so
another
if
idea.
you walk in the door dressed as Andre Agassi, and you've got like long hair, then you'll understand. I'll understand what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
You lucky thing. This could take on a whole new. Yeah, maybe we'll just keep it in the boardroom for this point. Okay. Yeah. So that's the subject, I think, for now. It's the subject of Mastermind, food for thought. Yeah. Have a little play, have some fun with it. 8 is the magic number. Maybe start with one person. Just think somebody I know, or somebody I've watched, or somebody
and take
who
a
inspires
task,
me.
Something that you want to do better, whether it's gardening or cookery or painting or tennis or rugby or whatever it is.
And just play with the concept. What would they do? What would they say? How would they do it? How would they say it? How would they behave? What wisdom can you get from them?
And then let us know. Let us know how you get on.
Please do in the comments
below. Could be very interesting.
So that's it for this one.
Yeah.
We will see you again very soon. I'm Neil. This is
Sonia.
And together we are Neya. We are going to come up with a way, way better. We have to come up with a way, way better. But for now, see you again soon.